It's not the market crash. It's not inflation. It's not even a bad year in the stock market. The biggest threat to your retirement isn't something that happens to you. It's something you're already doing to yourself, right now, without knowing it. Here's the part that should really bother you. A study of over 4 million retirement accounts found that 1 in 4 working Americans are quietly making this exact mistake with every single paycheck. Collectively, it's costing this country an estimated $24 billion a year. Money that was never spent, never invested badly, never lost in a crash. Just never claimed in the first place. $24 billion, sitting on the table every single year. So here's the question I want you to sit with for the next 12 minutes. Who actually loses this money? Is it careless people? Is it people who don't earn enough to save? By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly whether it's you. If you've ever opened your 401k enrollment, glanced at it for about 10 seconds, clicked whatever option was already filled in, and moved on with your life, yeah, this video is about you. It's about me too, if we're being honest, because I did the exact same thing at my first job. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your employer isn't going to call you and say, "Hey, you're leaving money behind." HR isn't sending a memo. Your paycheck is just going to look completely normal, month after month, year after year, while a very specific, very quiet number keeps draining out of your future. And the wild part is, fixing it takes about 90 seconds. But almost nobody does it. Not because they're bad with money, but because nobody ever actually sat them down and explained it properly. So let's do that right now. Here's the simplest way to understand a 401k. It's a retirement account your employer sets up, where you put in a slice of your paycheck before taxes, and it grows over time in the stock market. But here's what makes it different from just stuffing cash in a savings account. A lot of employers will match what you put in. You contribute $1, they add another $1, or 50 cents depending on the plan, for free. Not a loan. Not a bonus you have to earn with a good performance review. Just money that shows up because you did the bare minimum of paying attention. Think of it like this. Imagine your company announced a bonus program where they'd hand you an extra few $1,000s a year, no strings attached, just for filling out one form correctly. You'd sprint to HR's office. But because it's buried inside 401k paperwork instead of called a bonus, most people never even realize it's sitting there. Let's meet Sarah. Sarah's 28, works a solid corporate job in Denver, and back when she got hired, HR handed her a stack of onboarding forms on her very first day. Tax forms, insurance elections, an NDA, and buried somewhere in the middle, 401k enrollment. She was juggling a dozen new hire tasks at once, saw a pre-filled contribution rate of 3%, figured that number was fine since someone at the company must have set it for a reason, and moved on with her day. She had no idea her company actually matched dollar for dollar up to 6%. Nobody explained the formula to her. Nobody told her that 3% was just a default setting, not a recommendation. She just never looked closely enough to notice the difference. And honestly, why would she? Nothing about that form screamed, "This is costing you real money." Sarah isn't lazy. Sarah isn't bad with money. Sarah is exactly like the 25% of working Americans doing this same thing right now, today, at this exact moment, in thousands of companies across the country. And that one unchecked box, filled out in about 4 seconds on her first day of work, is about to cost her more than she could possibly imagine. Let's break this down piece by piece, because the mechanism itself is almost embarrassingly simple. And that's exactly why it slips past so many people. Most employer matches follow a set formula. The most common one, used by roughly half of all Fidelity retirement plans, works like this. Your employer matches 100% of your contribution up to 3% of your salary, then 50% of the next 2%. In plain English, if you contribute 5% of your paycheck, your employer kicks in an extra 4%. That's not investment performance. That's not the market being generous. That's just money handed to you for doing the bare minimum. But here's the catch. If you contribute less than that threshold, like Sarah's 3% instead of 5% or 6%, you don't just get a smaller match. You permanently forfeit the difference. It doesn't roll over into next year. It doesn't sit in some account waiting for you to catch up later. It just evaporates silently forever, the same way an unused vacation day disappears at the end of the year at some companies. And here's the thing that makes this even sneakier. Your paycheck doesn't show you a red warning label saying, "You left $1,900 on the table this year." It just shows you a slightly smaller 401k balance than it could have been, month after month, with absolutely no signal that anything went wrong. And this isn't some rare, unlucky scenario for a handful of people. That same financial engine study found 42% of workers earning under $40,000 a year miss out on their full match, compared to just 10% of workers earning over $100,000. This mistake hits hardest exactly where people can least afford to lose money. But here's why it actually matters. Because we're not talking about missing a one-time bonus. We're talking about losing decades of compounding. Let's go back to Sarah. She earns $65,000 a year and stays on that default 3% contribution instead of bumping it up to the 6% her company would fully match. Recent financial analysis puts the real cost of that single, unchanged number at around $276,000 less in her account by the time she turns 65, compared to a coworker who simply raised the number and let it compound over the same career. Let that sink in. Not a market crash, not a bad investment. One number left on the default setting, quietly costing $250,000. Same salary, same job title, same market conditions. The only difference between Sarah and her better-off coworker is 90 seconds inside an HR portal years ago. And Sarah's story has a sequel because even once she starts contributing enough to get her full match, there's a second trap waiting for her: vesting schedules. Vesting is the timeline your employer sets before that matched money is actually fully yours. Some companies vest you immediately. Others make you wait 3, 4, even 5 years, either gradually or all at once. Think of unvested match money like a paycheck you technically earned, but haven't actually been handed yet. And if you walk out the door too early, your employer gets to keep the envelope. Here's what nobody tells you when you're job hopping for a raise, which, by the way, is often the smartest short-term financial move you can make in this economy. If you leave before you're fully vested, you don't just slow your savings down. You forfeit the unvested employer match completely. Gone. Back to the company as if it was never yours. So picture this. Sarah gets a great offer 2 years into her job. A 15% raise, better title, better team. She takes it because of course she should. But her company's vesting schedule required 4 years before that match money was fully hers. She walks out the door with her salary bump and unknowingly leaves thousands of dollars of matched contributions sitting in her old employer's account, forfeited because nobody ever told her to check that number before she signed the new offer letter. So now we've got 2 invisible leaks happening at once for millions of Americans, contributing below the match threshold and switching jobs before vesting kicks in. Neither shows up as a red flag on a bank statement. Both are quietly gutting the same retirement account. And this isn't some abstract someday problem. Just this month, CNBC reported that average 401k balances are actually falling, even as the broader market has mostly recovered, with more workers pulling from their retirement accounts early just to cover today's bills, digging the hole deeper from both directions at once. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset manager on the planet, overseeing trillions of dollars, put it bluntly in his 2025 shareholder letter. He warned that almost no one in America is on track to have enough saved for retirement. Not most people, not many people, almost no one. That's the person managing more retirement money than anyone else on earth, telling you the system isn't working the way it's supposed to. And Warren Buffett, arguably the most successful investor in modern history, has spent decades explaining exactly why this mistake is so expensive. His advice has always boiled down to one idea: time is your friend, impulse is your enemy, and the real engine behind long-term wealth isn't picking hot stocks. It's giving compound interest as many years as possible to actually work. Every year Sarah stays on that default 3%, she's not just losing this year's match, she's losing 30 years of growth that money would have had. So let's put the real numbers side by side. One version of Sarah stays on autopilot, default contribution, job hops without ever checking her vesting schedule, never revisits the number sitting in her portal. By 65, she's short by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not because the market failed her, because a form she filled out in her first week at a job and never looked at again quietly failed her instead. The other version of Sarah spends less than 2 minutes checking one number in her HR portal, gets her full match, and lets 3 decades of compounding do the rest. Same salary, same job, same market, $250,000 difference. From one decision made in under 2 minutes. And this isn't just Sarah's story. It's playing out right now in millions of households across the country, in Denver, in Dallas, in small towns and big cities, in people who consider themselves financially responsible, who pay their bills on time, who have never missed a rent payment in their life. This mistake doesn't discriminate based on how careful you are with money. It discriminates based on whether anyone ever explained the rules to you. Remember that question from the start of this video? Who actually loses this money? It's not careless people, and it's not people who can't afford to save. It's regular, responsible people who were simply never handed the instructions, filling out a form on their first day of work that quietly shaped the next 40 years of their financial life. So here's the fix, and it really is this simple. Log into your 401k portal today. Find your contribution percentage. Compare it to your employer's match threshold, usually somewhere between 3% and 6%. If your number is lower than that threshold, raise it. That's it. That single change is the highest guaranteed return you will ever get on a dollar. Because it's not a maybe, it's free money deposited the moment you qualify for it. Then ask HR one simple question. What's my vesting schedule? Know it before your next career move, so a raise somewhere else doesn't quietly cost you thousands you already earned. This was never about being irresponsible with money. It's about a system that assumes you already know the rules nobody actually explained to you. Financial media isn't going to make a viral video about vesting schedules and match percentages. It doesn't trend. It's not a scandal. It's just quiet math that quietly changes the outcome of millions of ordinary financial lives. And that's exactly why nobody's talking about it. That's exactly why this channel exists. Not to chase headlines, but to decode the systems quietly shaping your money, whether you're paying attention or not. So if you actually want to understand what's happening with your money, hit subscribe. Because the mistakes that cost people the most are never the loud ones. They're the ones hiding in plain sight on a form you filled out once and never looked at again.